With political parties on the final push towards the 29th of May polls, the Economic Freedom Fighters will hold its final Tshela Thupa rally ahead of the elections at the Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane, Limpopo on Saturday. Of course, Limpopo is regarded as the party's stronghold. The party hopes to get an outright majority in these elections in this particular province. The EFF contested its first national elections in 2014, just a year after its launch, securing 6.35% of the vote, making it the country's third largest party. Fast forward to 2019, the party increased its share to 10.8%. To unpack the EFF's campaign trail ahead of the general elections next week, joining us in studio, we've got the Economic Freedom Fighters Commissar and Member of Parliament, Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. So nice seeing you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and good morning to SABC viewers.
Yeah, listen, you guys have been very busy. I mean, all of you have been exceptionally busy. How has it been? What has the whole campaign been like for you?
It's been a very strange campaign. One of which the facts are the plethora of political outfits that the Oppenheimers have given huge amounts of money, most of whose narrative actually focuses on the EFF and the propaganda misrepresentation that we're going to be this irresponsible government. When you elect us today, tomorrow we open the borders. And they've capitalized on that point, which has been unfortunate because it is not true. The EFF has a very well-articulated policy in its founding manifesto about regional integration in the interest of economic development, in which there is a gradual integration of the region, specifically because of the untapped African markets, over 1.2 billion population that is there, an untapped market, that if you're going to have an economic strategy that you produce goods, which will be a big solution to unemployment, you've got to look into the continent for the selling of those products. And this has been the saddest thing in these elections, is the amount of money white monopoly capital has dedicated to a plethora of outfits, of political parties, huge amounts of money, millions that have been poured by them because they are scared of change.
So that for you has been the narrative that has really gotten to you guys, which you feel is unfair and has been an untruth, is the whole stance with regard to the EFF and the big immigration, or the whole fear of xenophobia and opening up borders and allowing everyone in if the EFF comes into power. So what would your stance be? I mean, I know you've spoken to it many times, but let's clear the record.
Absolutely. I mean, so we've got to obviously make a fundamental distinction between immigration and regional integration. We will never wake up in the morning and say, treat visitors badly. That doesn't mean people should abuse the generosity of the South African spirit. Whether you come from Nigeria, whether you come from Pakistan, if you bring nonsense into South Africa, the EFF government will be the toughest on crime. It also doesn't mean that there mustn't be documentation of migrants, of immigrants. There should be, because otherwise how would you administer a country if you don't know who is in the country? But that is separate from the question of regional integration. All the water that we drink here in Johannesburg comes from outside the country. We've got huge electricity problems. The biggest solutions to that are immediately in Mozambique. But I'm saying that from an economic developmental point of view, you wouldn't want to develop in isolation. You won't be successful. And that particular position has been abused by many people in these liberal right-wing outfits to try and discredit the EFF. South African people should know that we're not part of that nonsense of, irresponsibly opening the borders, encouraging undocumentation. We will document people. Regional integration is going to be gradual with the consent of other peoples of the continent, with the consent of other governments of the continent, which is important because if there are centralized database systems, Leanne, you won't commit a crime in South Africa and run to Mozambique. If there is regional cooperation, we've got access to whoever it is in the continent, their DNA, and so on and so forth. You can't mess up with the hope that you will go somewhere and not be found. That's what's important. It is in the interest of the stability of South Africa. It's in the interest of the economic success of South Africa that there is a proper regional economic and trade strategy that all of us as the continent work together to achieve.
So that's one big issue. Another big issue, and I go back to your original comment of saying so many political parties have devised their entire campaign on worrying about the EFF and using all the money that they've gotten donated. And one of the big things that's been playing out is this whole Doomsday coalition. Perhaps you want to chat about that a little bit. This Doomsday coalition, which has been dubbed a coalition between the EFF and the ANC, which will mean the complete downfall of South Africa. You want to talk about that?
It is the proper manifestation of the Swart Gafar. It is motivated by white fears. People who are at the center, as you know, of white supremacy is the fear for equality. White people, because of generations and generations of having been privileged, of having been used to the situation of being superior to black people, fear the day when they will truly, in terms of the resources of this country, represent 7%. This discourse mobilizes black people, for an example, to focus on the crumbs that fall from the master's table, focus on 2% of the economy, leave the mines, leave the banks, leave the farms, in the hands of a minority in the country, and a minority of which remains white. That's what the Doomsday Coalition really represents, is the Swart and the Rooi Gafar. They are basically taking their script from the old apartheid days of being scared of liberation, of being scared of economic proposals that are trying to have the mines work for the benefit of all, trying to work the land to be in the benefit of all. That's what the Doomsday Coalition, and anybody who votes them, that's why all of them will not see anything wrong with the actions of the apartheid state of Israel and its devastation of Palestinian people. That's why most of them won't see anything wrong with that. We would, because we know what it feels to live in a racially segregated society, to live in a society where you are hated just by appearance, and where you can be devastated with violence without anybody coming into your rescue in the world. That's what that Rescue South Africa outfit it's about. It's taking its script from the apartheid days when the apartheid government used to be scared of a democracy.
So let me get this right, though. From what I'm understanding, this whole Doomsday Coalition is a big coalition between you and the ANC. Are there talks behind the scenes that is going to happen?
We're not talking to anyone.
So you're not talking to anyone?
We're spending 100% of the time talking to South Africans, because we believe that on the menu, on the ballot, only the EFF presents a solution.
So a vote for the EFF is a vote for the EFF, not for the EFF.
It's a vote for the land, it's a vote for jobs, it's a vote for the end of load shedding, it's a vote for economic freedom in our lifetime.
Okay, so that's what
we're not trying to say, some people get out of the ANC, they say vote for me so I can save the ANC. Some people are saying, oh please, we want to save you from the EFF. We're the only ones who are trying to save South Africa and exhume it out of economic devastation. A vote for the EFF is a vote for economic freedom in our lifetime.
Because there are talks of coalitions, because you do know, I mean, it's nothing new. It's something that we're already in, a very big coalition, in all our municipalities. There's a lot going on there, but it's something that people are looking to a national government now as well, where the whole talk of coalitions and coming together and seeing who can come together and agree and all of this. Are you open to going into coalitions with anybody?
No.
You're expecting outright
our
win.
Position, we do not, are not going to put the cart before the horse. Our position to South Africans is, you don't need a coalition government. You need an economic freedom government. You need a government that is going to, on the 30th of May, after the elections results are declared, it's going to hit the ground running to resolve your water problems, to resolve your electricity problems, your landlessness, your unemployment, and high levels of crime. You need a government that is not going to waste time trying to convince each other of the agenda. You need so you don't vote for anybody else on the 29th of May. All the 3 ballots, please give them to the EFF. Just look for red, and next to it put a cross. Calvary, the cross. That's where the liberation of our people is.
Yeah.
We are not in a coalition with anyone, going to the polls. We're not in an alliance with, we're not working with anyone. Our commitment is to work with South Africans to make this country finally a place of economic freedom in our lifetime.
So from 10% in 2019, you're above 50% this year. Is that what you're looking at?
That's what we're fighting for.
Okay.
Where
But
was
in
the
your mind,
ANC
you
in
believe you're gonna
94?
get that.
Where
You
was the
believe that.
ANC before 94? They had to be ambitious. There was PAC, there was all types of outfits, IFP, everything. They went for total victory. We're not going to be convinced, mobilized that we must hold back on this part and that part of the country because so-and-so is strong there. No, we're everywhere. The EFF is contesting each and every single voting station. We will be there. You will find us on the ballot. Give the EFF a chance.
I want to get a sense as well as obviously you're very vocal about it. You have been from the beginning. You've never changed on your stance with regard to the nationalization of whether it be mines, whether it be banks, whether it be, whatever it is that South Africa, in order to create this economic freedom. What does a nationalized bank look like? Just to give us an idea.
It is a bank that is owned by the state. In South Africa, that's important because one of the anomalies of South Africa's economy is that the capitalists in this country keep a lot of money in the bank. They actually don't invest it. That's why you don't have a lot of foreign direct investment. Because if I'm sitting in New York and I'm looking at world markets, South Africa appears as a strange profile in which the rich people in South Africa keep a lot of money in the bank. They don't open factories, they don't open industries because they don't believe in the possibility of this country. They are comfortable with just themselves being rich. A state bank would redirect all the financial muscle of this country into industrialization. We would fund all the black people's brilliant ideas in terms of SMMEs. Most black people can't get business funding in this country because they are black. Majority of the banks are white owned. That's a fact. They waste a lot of money on white ideas, most of which are not about industrialization. We would direct a financial strategy, Leanne, that focuses on industrialization because that's where the solution for unemployment is. In our capacity as a country to produce products that we consume, so much so that we even go into the markets in the continent. The Asian markets are saturated, China, India, European markets are saturated as well as North America. An untapped market, which the world is working hard for South Africa not to dominate, for South Africa not to lead, is the African market. That's where you've got over 1.2 billion population that is just there waiting for you to not only give, solutions in relation to infrastructure development, but also to tap as a market of consumers.
And I agree with your sentiments in terms of industrialization. It's needed. We need to create our own jobs. We need to be the ones that benefit the people of this country. However, through past experience, it's been hard watching a lot of state-owned entities. And I know you're going to blame it on the leadership of the ANC, but it's a fact. We've seen it happen. So many of our state entities being destroyed under the leadership of government. Now, if you go and do a banking system, mining, everything that is working, these entities are working, and we go and nationalize them, the risks of them falling apart that under government rule, does this not worry you? Do you not think that's the fate of it?
No. Because we've made a diagnosis of why in the last 30 years, state institutions, particularly the ones that are at the coalface of service delivery, are falling apart. Is because of outsourcing. Everywhere, the government of the ANC outsources its responsibility to run government. And that creates a tender system which is very parasitic. The tenderpreneurs, because they are on the payroll, they go damage infrastructure because they know they are going to be called to come and fix it. In Mamelodi, there hasn't been water in some parts for a very long time because they've damaged deliberately the infrastructure. Then they get contracted with water tanks and they deliver water all over. So our solution to the dysfunctionality is because we've made a diagnosis. The dysfunctionality of state institutions is because of the tender system, is because of the tendency to outsource the responsibility to run those institutions to a plethora of businesses, to a plethora of contractors that most of the time are linked to government people, linked to politicians and so on and so forth. So when you build internal state capacity to deliver services, you give workers, you don't do EPWPs. You give workers permanent jobs, you put them on a permanent contract, you pay them qualitatively, and because there is no tender, there's no hope that I can destroy a train station or I can destroy a railroad with the hope that I'm going to be called as a contractor to go fix it. The workers will come out and fix those things. Okay. So that's really the reason why there's been absolute destruction of state institutions over the last 30 years, is because the tenderpreneurs are hoping to benefit out of destruction. We're going to do away with the tenders. And that is the resolution of the problem, not only of dysfunctionality, but also of utter corruption.
I want to park, obviously, that there, because that's a big talking point and perhaps a big thing that voters are looking for, what you're saying there. I want to move to the actual elections now and the violence ahead of elections, because for me that's a very big issue. And there's an incident that happened in, I think it's called Juju Park in Limpopo over the weekend, where we see that a young girl was shot in the head due to violence that was going on between the DA and the EFF in a no-go area that's been described by people that are staying there for other parties to go in and do door-to-door campaigning, and this has resulted. Is this a sign of things to come? What is a no-go EFF area? What does that mean? And what do you have to say about this particular event?
Juju Valley is not a no-go area of the EFF. That's the first thing to say. And we must really express our serious sympathy to the young girl that got injured and hope for a speedy recovery. And we encourage South African police to go and investigate and arrest whoever pulled a gun, whoever shot, and that person must go to jail, regardless of which political party they belong to. The EFF is fundamentally a tolerant political party. We're not in charge of, we have operated in situations of serious political hostility. We'll never declare anywhere as a no-go area. And let's just fix the facts quickly. Juju Valley is not an EFF no-go area. It's not an ANC no-go area. Everybody is free to campaign. But people must not campaign in a way that is provocative to any political party. Number one. Number two, it was the ANC, not the DA. It was the ANC that was there that caused conflict in our view. But as I said, there's not going to be any violence. You're not going to receive any violence from fighters. You're not going to receive any violence from any EFF person anywhere. If that person is wearing an EFF t-shirt and start doing violence, you must know that they're an agent provocateur, possibly not an EFF member.
Well, reports that I'm reading, and apologies if I did say the DA, I didn't even know I said that. I meant to say that.
Because maybe you do expect a lot of violence from the DA.
Not really. I don't expect any violence from anyone, but apologies for saying that. But certainly the ANC, they're saying 14 of their members are injured. It was something that got out of control and it was very violent. But I'm hearing your side of the story. I'm going to have to leave it on that note, but there is a little girl who's in hospital at the moment. Has anybody gone to visit them? Because I'm hearing reports from the father saying that nobody's even gone to see how she is.
Well, I will be in contact with the leadership. We will certainly closely follow it up. But what is importantly and what is important to underscore is that we call on the police to do their job, investigate. You go and make sure that whoever pulled out a gun and shot that bullet, is arrested with speed. The EFF will never declare anywhere a no-go area. And number two, South Africans must be able to be politically tolerant. We've made this message very clear that we're tolerant, everybody must be tolerant, and we must all campaign under free conditions. We believe in the strength of our message. We believe in nothing else. We don't believe in guns in order to make our message clear, and we've campaigned like that everywhere. There won't be violence from the EFF anywhere in the country.
I hope your followers are listening to this, because this is not an impression that we're getting right now. I need to ask you two issues here, and a very important issue as to what is going on in Gaza and Israel. Your stance on this, what does the EFF have to say about that situation?
Well, firstly, Israel is an apartheid state because they constituted in 1948 a Jewish-only citizenship after having plundered Palestinian lands, removed people that had belonged to that land simply because they are not Jewish, took off their lands and turned them into foreigners. They've built separate roads, they've built separate schools, they've built separate informal settlements. They literally discriminate against particularly Palestinians of Arab origin. It's an apartheid state. And at the moment in Gaza, what you are witnessing there is outright genocide, targeted killing of a group of people on the basis that they are Palestinian, taking off their lands, killing them systematically. That is our position. In fact, for us, we would have loved the world to respond to what is happening in Gaza the same way they responded to Hitler. We should be there, physically, militarily defending the Palestinians from that violence. That's what happened during World War II. The world converged through the Allied partners to go and physically, militarily defend lives of people from a racist agenda of the Nazi regime. That's what we should be doing. We should be arming Palestinians. We should be joining them on the ground. We should be making sure that all the military, freedom-loving people go and stop Israel physically from ending and basically wiping out a people from existence. That's our position. That's what we should be doing because it is accepted universally. And that's what happened in defense of Jewish people from Hitler. That's what should have happened in Rwanda. That's what happens everywhere. That's what is happening, for an example, in other parts of the world where people are armed to defend themselves from a racist regime that is trying to wipe them from existence.
My final point that I need to speak to you about is, of course, you're hoping to swap your one cap, the Commissar of the EFF. You'll remain that, but you would like to become the Premier of Gauteng as well. So this is something that I'm finding very interesting, and I'm almost liking some of the things that you're saying, because being a Gauteng resident, living here my whole life, watching the deterioration of this province has been one of the most heartbreaking things to see. As the Premier of Gauteng, what would you come in and do and change in this province?
Very quickly, two things. Firstly, we believe that the sphere of the province is unnecessary in terms of the administration of the country. 9% of the division of revenue goes into local government. That's an anomaly because that's a cold face of service delivery. So two things that we're going to do. We're going to lead a massive process of cancelling tenders, building internal state capacity, which will create hundreds of thousands of jobs. Secondly, we're going to lead a massive industrialization policy where we select products that we've got an international competitive advantage of through a policy of protection of infant industries, high tariffs, subsidies, open real factories, revitalize mines, open new mines in limestone, in clay, revitalize the gold mines and end the zamazamas, but also open factories in the plastic sector, open factories in the textile sector, factories, real jobs, permanent jobs, not Nancy Spani or Nasi Spani, which is basically like those food parcels that are distributed during elections, and after elections, they are nowhere to be found. We're talking about permanent jobs where people produce products that are constantly needed, not just in the South African market, but also in other parts of the world, particularly the continent. Proper jobs, and that's how you know the EFF is a solution. It's not promising you an in-service training. It's promising you a job in a factory, a job in an industry, a job in government where you build and maintain roads. You waste collectors are permanent jobs, qualitatively paid, that must deliver qualitative services. That's what we will be doing. It's a Gauteng that is going to have massive economic growth, at the center of which are real jobs.
And that is the point I'll leave it on. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Can you believe it? It's a week away. I know all of you are tired at this point in time, but you've got to dig deep because this is where it gets exciting. And believe me, we spoke about this before the interview, that there are voters out there that still do not know who to vote for. So at any moment they could change their minds. So these moments are very important for them. Good luck.
Thank you, Leanne. And please, South Africans, give the EFF a chance.
All right, there you go. That was Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi talking to us here on Morning Live. He, of course, is Representing the economic freedom fighters is the Commissar and Member of Parliament, talking us through the EFF's final push towards the May polls next week. And of course, they're having their last final rally that'll be held at the Peter Mokaba Stadium in Limpopo over the weekend.